Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to a special edition of Grid Live Pre-Race. I'm Adam Lemerise. With me is Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Today, we'll be previewing the 2021 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season finale with the 24th running of the Motul Petit Le Mans, held at the Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta, and Braselton, Georgia. A strong 43-car lineup will take the grid. Kobe?
Yes, a strong 43-car lineup. Really excited to see that many cars ending the year racing in IMSA. And that's right, IMSA ending the year with its annual stop at Road Atlanta Petit Le Mans, the 10-hour crown jewel endurance race that every sports car driver wants on their resume. And you mentioned 24 years of this great event founded by the late Don Panos, who had a vision to bring the spirit of Le Mans to America 24 years later after that inaugural race. I think his mission was definitely a success because the spirit of Le Mans is definitely strong here in the United States. Petit Le Mans, a young crown jewel endurance race compared to the Rolex 24 Daytona, the Mobil 112 Hours of Sebring, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Still a lot to discuss from its short history. And last year we saw Wayne Tayor Racing and Cadillac win overall in DPI. That was Cadillac's third consecutive Petit Le Mans win. Looking to make it 4 in a row today. They're currently tied with Peugeot in second for all-time overall victories. If a General Motors powered prototype pulls into victory lane tonight after 10 p.m. Eastern Time, they'll stand alone in second all time, but still a ways to go before catching Audi, who has 9 wins. However, Cadillac isn't the only one who can stand alone. Wayne Tayor Racing can make a little history themselves. This year, the team switched to Acura, but currently tied with 4 other teams for most wins all time in this event. Wayne Tayor Racing won Petit Le Mans in 2014, 2018, and last year in 2020. If Wayne Tayor Racing wins tonight's race, they'll be the all-time winningest team in Petit Le Mans history. And here's the first question for you, Adam. What's the most likely scenario in your opinion? Cadillac winning 4 in a row or Wayne Tayor Racing going down in history?
Oh, I believe Cadillac's going to go. I believe that Cadillac will win 4 in a row. You take a look at Cadillac's teams. First of all, in the 01, you have Renger van der Zande, Kevin Magnussen, and just for a little spice, Scott Dixon from the NTT IndyCar Series. Action Express has Pippo Durrani, Felipe Nasr, and Mike Conway. And we can't forget the number 48, Ally Racing Cadillac, with 7-time NASCAR Cup champion Jimmy Johnson, FIA World Endurance Champion Kamari Kobayashi, and Simon Pagenaud, also from the NTT IndyCar Series. Acura only has 2 entries, but Wayne Tayor Racing has a strong 3-driver lineup with Felipe Albuquerque, Ricky Taylor, and Alexander Rossi from the NTT IndyCar Series. And we all know Alexander Rossi had a dismal year there, so he wants to rebound in this endurance classic. So I believe Cadillac will win 4 in a row later tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think Cadillac certainly has all of the momentum right now this weekend, especially entering Petit Le Mans. Because remember the last time DPI class race on the streets of Long Beach, Cadillac absolutely dominated that weekend with Acura and Mazda just trying to play catch up. And right now, I think it's really anybody's game in a 10-hour endurance race because not necessarily the fastest car going to win. It's the car that's going to be the most reliable and a team that makes the least amount of mistakes and put themselves in position at the right place in the right time. But overall, I think the momentum has definitely swung Cadillac's way, and Wayne Tayor Racing Acura so far this weekend, just like Long Beach, I think they're definitely playing a little bit of catch up. And later on, we'll discuss what happened in qualifying yesterday on Friday evening, which could really play a role in what we're talking about now with Cadillac winning 4 in a row, or can Wayne Tayor Racing go down in history and become the all-time winners team in the history of this great young endurance race? And the track itself, located in Braselton, Georgia, you mentioned, Adam, a 12-turn, 2.54-mile circuit, lots of elevation changes, blasting through the right-hander in turn one up the hill, then downhill through those treacherous S's, you definitely don't want to have an off there, because if you go off, hit those barriers, that's going to be a nasty shunt. Full throttle down the long backstretch before entering the heavy braking zone, heading uphill before a drop in elevation, coming onto the front stretch to complete a lap at Road Atlanta. And the weather for today's race, around the race start afternoon Eastern, temperatures in the mid to low 50s, so your typical fall day in the Pete state of Georgia. Lots of sunshine. However, the temperature will drop throughout the day, going from the 50s down to the low 40s, high 30s. So you can expect a chilly finish. So if you're out there at the track, make sure you have on your jacket. Teams will have to keep up with the changing track conditions. Warmer in the day, much cooler when the sun goes down. The transition from daylight, sunset into twilight and full darkness with the headlights flashing. I really love all of the imagery at Petit Le Mans during this time of year, watching the sunset, and then there's nothing but headlights. It really leads the photographers to catch some really stunning, beautiful images. So, Adam, here's my question: what's going to be the most challenging aspect these teams and drivers will face in 10 hours of racing?
Oh, I believe, I believe when you're going from daylight into darkness, to me, you're going to need a strong last stint in order to have a chance of winning overall and your class at the Motul Petit Le Mans. You think about it. This is like a marathon. You can't win the race on lap one or in 1 minute. You need to pace yourself. Take it easy, lap by lap. And overall, this kind of reminds me of the NASCAR Coca-Cola 600 that they have every year at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, because it starts out in daylight and ends under dark. So all these teams and drivers are going to have to have a strong day in order to maintain going to the finish under the lights at Michelin Raceway for Atlanta.
For me, I think one of the most challenging aspects is going to be traffic. And multi-class race, you got the DPI class is the fastest, and the GTD class is the slowest on a 43 car field. It's been a while since we've had that many cars. So I definitely think it's going to be important, especially in your DPI when you're lapping the slower GT cars. Make sure you're navigating through traffic nice and easy. And like you mentioned, now you can't win the race on the lap one. So this is definitely a marathon. You need to pace yourselves, and definitely don't force the car into those braking zones to try to make an overtake if possible. Just be patient and overtake on the straights when it'll be much easier rather than overtaking them through the corner. I know some of the GTD drivers always like to speak out about the bullies and the prototypes, always knocking them around, trying to get through in the aggression level. I know we like to call this an endurance race, and time again in endurance racing, we like to say it's a 10-hour sprint race, because that's really what it is. Because these drivers are pushing 110% every single lap, from the time the green flag falls to the time the checker flag flies at the end of 10 hours of racing. So I definitely think patience and managing traffic is going to be key to see who wins this year's Petit Le Mans. And entering the final race, we have some championship battles to decide. With the IMSA point system, the maximum number of points you can earn on any given sports car racing weekend is 385 points. If you win the race in your class, you'll get a total of 350 points. Second place gets 320 points. Third place, 300 points. However, winning the pole will earn you an additional 35 points. So it really puts an emphasis on qualifying if you're in the hunt for a title. In a moment, we'll talk about how qualifying in those 35 points really played a role in the DPI championship battle. And the second place qualifier, 32 points. Third place, 30 points. However, the number of cars racing in each class will have a say in who's truly in the hunt. We'll get to qualifying a little later in the program, but we'll start off looking at the DPI points battle to see who has a mathematical chance of winning the championship, a real legitimate shot. And at the top of the DPI standings, we have a truly epic championship battle setting up between Wayne Tayor Racing and the Action Express Racing Racing Team. Felipe Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor lead the DPI championship over Felipe Nasser and Pippo Durrani. Entering the weekend, only 19 points separated the Acura and Cadillac contenders, with at least 385 points. So every point will matter. Qualifying, the race result, everything. Like we've seen in the NASCAR Championship 4 playoff races, with the series champion almost always winning that last race. Looking at the tight battle between Taylor and Action Express, do you think those teams really need to win the race in order to get the championship?
I certainly do. You talked about the intense battle between Wayne Tayor Racing and Action Express. In a little while, we'll be discussing qualifying, and well, let's just say that Action Express is going to be hard to beat later on this afternoon and into the night. I believe you're going to have to win this race in order to win the overall DPI championship. It's going to come down to position on the track. Both teams are going to have to be strong all day long. Really successful pit stops. And like you said, Kobe, maneuvering through the traffic, getting around the GTLM categories. So I believe that if you win this race, you will win the championship.
Yeah, definitely. Especially since we'll touch on this and in just a little while later in the program, as we've already said, qualifying yesterday in DPI land. Oh boy, it's really gonna make the championship even tighter heading into the race. And I don't necessarily think that you need to win the race in order to win the championship, but definitely whoever finishes ahead of the other car is gonna win the championship. Considering the championship battle has definitely tightened up. It's less than 19 points now. It's basically been cut in half after a good qualifying session for Action Express and a really bad qualifying session for the Wayne Tayor Racing Continental Acura DPI. So I don't necessarily think you need to win the race in order to win the championship, but I think whoever finishes in front of the other one is going to win because the deficit is really, really tight right now. But certainly winning a crown jewel race, winning the championship, get the double whammy right there. And in LMP2, only 113 points separated the championship leaders Ben Keaton and Mikkel Jensen from PR1 Madison Motorsports over Web Autosport, Stephen Thomas and Tristan Nunez, who's actually replacing Felipe Nasr at Action Express in 2022. And Felipe Nasr has been reported that he's going to be joining Team Penske's new Porsche LMDH program in 2023. And over in LMP3, the three drivers fighting for the title, Gar Robinson leads Core Autosport driver pairing of Colin Braun and John Bennett by 50 points. Only 5 cars in LMP2 and while 10 in LMP3 this weekend. Who's most likely to feel less stress? Ben Keaton and Mikkel Jensen racing with one hand on the championship and less competition, or Colin Braun and John Bennett in a 10-car field with a much smaller points lead, especially after LMP3 qualifying today. They have an even less lead than 50 points.
Oh, I believe the LMP2 class is going to be strong. Like I said, Kobe, only 5 cars in this class. You mentioned that the LMP2 championship leaders already have one hand on the trophy. I believe they'll be less stressful because they already know they have one hand on the championship. In LMP3, you have 10 cars, so I believe that it'll be less stressful for the LMP2 class over the LMP3 class.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I definitely think Ben Keaton and Mikkel Jensen gonna bring it home without any issues at all, and with less competitors, that mean that they'll lose even less points if something goes wrong. So they're definitely in a much better position than Colin Braun and John Bennett, who had a disastrous Friday and before qualifying, they had an issue with the fuel cell. They didn't even get to go out and make a qualifying lap. So that's huge for the championship, right there, and really gives Gar Robinson a better advantage going into the race. So it's going to be interesting to see if Colin Braun and John Bennett can put Friday behind them and hope that Gar Robinson has some bad luck later today in the GTLM Championship. Is definitely going to go to Corvette Racing. Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor on top in the number 3 Corvette C8R, leading their teammates in the number 4, Tommy Milner, Nick Tandy by 127 points. Cooper McNeil's third in the standings, 295 points back. And the championship aside, this is definitely going to be a special race. It's the final race in GTLM history. After today's race, the GTE platform will become obsolete in IMSA competition. A 6-car field to close this chapter. Next year, GTLM is being replaced by GTD Pro. All pro driver lineups, factory programs utilizing the GT3 platform. We have 2 Corvettes, 2 BMWs running their final race for Team RLL and Proton Competition Wellstate Racing, adding a second Porsche 911 RSR. They've run the number 79 Porsche Cooper McNeil and several Porsche factory drivers. Now they're entering the number 97 Porsche, an all-pro driver lineup filled with factory talent, Kevin Estra, Michael Christensen, and Fred Makowicki. Adam, what are you going to miss the most about GTLM?
Well, that's easy. Corvette Racing. Think about their history overall and the drivers that they've had in those cars. You mentioned Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. Another driver that comes to mind is Yad Magnuson. And we all can't forget the 2001 24 Hours Daytona, where in a Corvette featured Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his dad, the late great Dale Earnhardt Sr. It was Senior's last race before we all know what happened in the Daytona 500. Corvette Racing has so much history in that organization, in those teams. So for me, I'm going to have to say I'll truly miss Corvette Racing.
Well, Adam, Corvette Racing is still going to be around racing next year, and that's a story we'll touch on in a little while. But totally agree with you. There've been a lot of great racing over the years in the ACO's GTE platform, GTLM. We've seen a lot of great battles over the years. Unfortunately, as we've gotten towards the end of its life cycle, we've seen the competition leave, and it hasn't been as competitive as it used to be, seeing manufacturers disappear. I remember the days, really enjoyed when we had Corvette Racing. We had the Ford GT program with Chip Ganassi Racing. We had the 2-car Porsche factory program. We had Team Falcon Tire, the Reese Competizione Ferrari, and of course the Aston Martin Racing Run Daytona. I think those are really the best years of the GTLM class. And also can't forget the SRT Dodge Vipers that we used to have as well. Can't forget the Vipers. I think that during those years when we had all those teams competing, both factory and the privateers going for the class victory, lots of tight battles after 24 hours racing, 12 hours racing, 10 hours of racing, even in the sprint races. There was just great racing all around, and there's definitely a plethora of I could probably talk 30 minutes about my favorite GTLM memories, but we don't have that amount of time today. But it's certainly going to be missed, and I hope the GTD Pro Era will bring us as well. If GTD Pro brings at least half of exciting racing as we've seen in GTLM over the years, I'm sure a lot of people will definitely be satisfied. So when the checker flag flies tonight after 10 p.m. Eastern Time, GTLM is history. It's definitely going to be sad for a while because we're never going to see this kind of class ever again. So it's definitely going to be something. Looking at GTD, we have Pfaff Motorsports leading the championship. Lawrence Van Thor, Zachary Robichon trying to end a strong season on top, entering the race weekend, a 50-point advantage over the number 1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini, Brian Sellers and Madison Snow. 15-car field, so a bad day for either one. Lots of points up for grab. This battle definitely could go right down to the wire. Pfaff has 4 GTD class wins this year. They won the last race at VIR compared to Paul Miller Racing's only win at Long Beach. Does Pfaff have the momentum on their side?
Absolutely. They're a strong lineup. Right now you take a look. Lawrence Van Thorn and Zachary Robichon, you gotta say they are the favorites to win this class, but Paul Miller Lamborghini team has also two really good drivers, Brian Sellers and Madison Snow, both accomplished in a race in sports car racing for a long time. So I believe the momentum right now has to go to Fat Motorsports.
Yeah, I definitely think that Fast Motorsports definitely has the odds on their side. 4 wins compared to just one win by the Paul Miller Racing Group. I definitely think if you're betting in Vegas that you probably bet all your money on Fast Motorsports over Paul Miller Racing since they've found the most success so far this season. But Paul Miller Racing yesterday in qualifying, they really performed extremely well, starting at the front of the field in that class, and we'll see if that's gonna give them a shot in the arm to keep on pushing forward and try to take this championship away from FAF at the last moment. And unlike the LMP2 class that we just talked about, only 5 cars compared to 15 cars, the championship continue to have a bad day in LMP2, they won't lose as many points. If speaking hypothetically, if FAF Motorsports has a really bad day and finishes dead last in the GTD class and Paul Miller Racing wins the race, that's definitely going to be game over for FAF. So there's definitely a lot more to lose in GTLM than LMP2. And I'm looking at some of the major storylines coming into the weekend. We all know coming to the season finale every year, there's going to be a lot of emotions with a lot of things coming to an end. And one of those things ending, Mazda's factory DPI program concluding after the checker flag flies tonight. From the lows of the diesel program, struggling to keep pace, lots of reliability concerns catching on fire. Mazda, and not the good type of fire. Mazda finally built a respectable prototype program that can win each week. Finally got that long awaited win in 2019 at the Salem 6 Hours of Glen, years in the making, and got the crown jewel Mobile 1 12 Hours of Sebring at the end of last year. And all of that, and that journey started with the Skagit diesel all the way to today's race. That journey is coming to an end tonight. And Adam, what's the greatest lesson we can all learn from Mazda's factory prototype program, experiencing the lows en route to happier days as we say goodbye?
To me, that's easy. You gotta take, you gotta take the good days with the bad days. We all have them, even outside of motorsports, and Mazda's been really successful in DPI program. You mentioned their first victory in the Salem 6 Hours of the Glen, and they did win the Mobile 1 12 Hours of Sebring. It won't next year. It won't be the same without Mazda. Back in the day, they did compete in the old IMSA Campbell GTP series, a protege to the American Le Mans series, and now what we call the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series. Mazda's had a long, successful history in sports car racing, even competing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So next year, it won't be the same without Mazda on the grid.
Yeah, definitely won't be the same next year without Mazda on the grid. And I think the greatest lesson to learn from this is the lesson of perseverance and the lesson of failure, because before you succeed you have to fail. And I'm sure all of the good people who are work with the Mazda prototype program over the years will tell you that they failed many times, and we saw all of those failures play out live from the Skyactiv diesel program. Remember when they first showed up with that prototype, they were way far off of the prototypes, not even on the pace. Then it seemed like the car was catching on fire every other week, and people wondered how long would Mazda stick around for this. They dropped that troublesome Skyactiv diesel program, went to gasoline. Mazda got better, but they still weren't ready to win races. Then they got with the DPI at first. That didn't really go well. Then they brought in the legendary sports car team, Team Yost. They tried. Team Yost really got that program working. Then when the partnership with Yost ended, they went with Multimatic, with Mazda Motorsports, and we've really seen this program come to life. So I think the greatest thing we can take away from Mazda's factory prototype program is just persevere when times get tough. Just keep on fighting, and one day your day will come, and all of those frustrated nights and failures will definitely be worth it in the end. Kind of like they say, first before you run, you have to walk, and before you walk, you have to crawl. And I feel like Mazda checked up all of those boxes, and now they have an opportunity to have that ultimate mic drop moment, and in this era with a victory in the Motul Petit Le Mans. As for Mazda's involvement in future prototype programs, hopefully this is not goodbye, but more so of a see you later. And I and another thing that's happening, another ending, longtime Porsche factory driver Patrick Long announced he'll retire from full time racing after tonight's Petit Le Mans. While stepping away from driving, Long will continue his relationship with Porsche, working with the German manufacturer on the road car product side as a brand ambassador. He'll also serve as a competition advisor on the motorsport side for Porsche Motorsport North America, and the 40-year-old is going to end his racing career with an impressive legacy, and that's very Hall of Fame worthy. Two GT class victories in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, several GT titles in the American Le Mans Series GT World Challenge competition, victories in other Crown Jewel sports car races, won the Rolex 24, 12 Hours of Sebring, Petit Le Mans, 12 Hours of Nürburgring, and the Bathurst 12 Hour. America's Porsche factory driver certainly accomplished every major feat you can earn in the sports car racing world. Will Pat Long go down in history as one of the best American sports car racers?
Absolutely. And when you think about sports car racing here in America, one name that has to come to mind is Hurley Haywood. Hurley Haywood has competed all over the world in the Brumos Porsche. He's won so many titles at the Rolex 24 Hours Daytona, the 12 Hours of Sebring, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Patrick Long is right there with him. You mentioned all of his accomplishments, Kobe. Yeah, he'll go down as one of the greatest American sports car drivers in history, and it won't be the same without him on the grid next year. But we'll see. We'll probably, like you said, he'll be a brand ambassador for Porsche. So yeah, I can say Patrick Long is up there with Hurley Haywood as one of the greatest American sports car racers in history.
Well said, Adam. I couldn't have said it better myself. And he said he's retired from full time driving. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he's retired from driving forever. I'm sure if Porsche needs him in a fill in situation, or he wants to run a crown jewel event at some point, I'm sure he'll definitely be willing to help out the manufacturer on the motorsports side if he's needed. But you mentioned Hurley Haywood, one of the greatest sports car racing drivers in history. When I think of Patrick Long, I think of drivers like Hurley Haywood, Scott Pruitt, and when he retires, Bill Oberlin's going to be there. Joey Hand's had a lot of success as well in American sports car racing. The Taylor brothers, Jordan and Ricky, and Patrick Long. I definitely think he'll go down as history as one of the best American drivers to ever do it in the sports car racing world. So definitely a tip of the cap to him for everything he's accomplished in his racing career, winning all of his crown jewel events. Most drivers can't even win one of those events, and he's won so many of those crown jewel events. So definitely Pat Long doesn't have anything to be ashamed about because he's had quite a historic sports car racing career, and we've been sentimental for a while with two emotional stories. So I think it's time for something that will put a smile on some people's faces. Corvette Racing announced they're going to be building a GT3 car that will debut in 2024. So we still have a little ways to go, as you can see right here. The new Corvette Z06 Gt3R. We still have a few more years until we actually see that in racing action and available for privateer teams. And there is no word on the future of their factory GT racing program. However, the factory program will continue in 2022, but with some changes. Only one Corvette competing full-time in IMSA's new GTD Pro class next year. The number 3 modified C8R will race alongside the other GT3 cars, Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor returning for full-time IMSA competition. Nicky Casper back as the endurance driver. And it makes you wonder, where's the number 4 Corvette C8R going if they're only running a solo IMSA entry next year? Well, those drivers are going to be competing in the 2022 FIA World Endurance Championship GTE Pro category with the regular C8R with the same driver lineup of Tommy Milner, Nick Tandy, and Alexander Sims. Adam, what are your thoughts on the new Corvette GT3 car coming in 2023 and the dual 2022 IMSA WC program?
Oh, I can say I love the new Corvette. It's sleek, it's aerodynamic, it's beautiful looking. I wish it was coming on the track next year, but unfortunately we have to wait till 2023. And regarding the IMSA WEC program for next year, I think it's going to be kind of cool, to give those international fields over in the World Endurance Championship some American flair, and we'll see how the Corvette does against that international field, that is the FIA World Endurance Championship.
Yeah, I gotta wait till 2024 for the new Corvette GT3 car. Thinks it looks really good. I'm sure it's definitely gonna be a winner because every car Corvette built has won, and I wouldn't expect anything less in 2024. As for the program here and abroad, really cool to see Corvette committing to racing on the world stage, the World Endurance Championship. Also, I'm sure that's really gonna help their case when they apply for the 24 Hours of Le Mans entry list. Having a full-time presence in the World Endurance Championship will certainly help the number 3 Corvette get on the grid at Circuit de la Sarthe. And it's going to be interesting to see if they bring a modified second Corvette C8R to race in GTD Pro next year. I know it's going to be really weird next year just seeing the 3 car at every race, while the number 4 car is going to be racing over in Europe. It's going to be interesting if they decide to run Tommy Milner, Nick Tandy, and Alexander Sims for the Michelin Endurance Cup in 2022. But overall, really good to see Corvette going to be racing all over the world. It's going to be really rigorous, focusing on the IMSA program here stateside and the World Endurance Championship program all over the world. So it's certainly going to be an exciting time. If you're General Motors, exciting, but very, very busy. And looking at the qualifying results from yesterday in DPI, the number 31 Action Express Whelen Engineering Cadillac DPI won the pole. It was a great lap by Felipe Nasr in his final race for the team, a lap time of 108.678. Title challengers Wayne Tayor Racing, they didn't have the best qualifying session with Felipe Albuquerque behind the wheel. They qualified 7th and dead last in the DPI class. Action Express came in 19 behind the WTR Konica Minolta Acura, but after that poor qualifying session by Wayne Tayor Racing, Action Express were able to get maximum points in qualifying, 35 points. They were able to gain 11 more points than their competitor in qualifying, and with that epic pole by Felipe Nasr, did Action Express fire the first shot to put Wayne Tayor Racing on notice, or does qualifying on pole even matter in a long 10-hour endurance race?
Oh, Action Express fired the first shot. We mentioned that Cadillac's gone for 4 in a row. If I were Wayne Tayor Racing, they're starting dead last in class, even though it is a 10-hour endurance race. And you mentioned, Kobe, these drivers are going to go out like it's a 10-hour sprint race. Action Express fired the first shot, and also you mentioned the points. The points is tight, very tight. So Action Express right now is looking pretty good for the championship. But like I just mentioned, it's a 10-hour endurance race. You're going to have to pace yourself lap by lap, hour by hour. So Action Express really did fire the first bullet into this season finale, which is the Motul Petit Le Mans.
Yeah, I definitely think you can say Action Express certainly fired the first shot. And Wayne Tayor Racing, I'm wondering, are they going to let this championship slip away after leading the standings for this long, while Wayne Tayor Racing still controlled their own destiny, leading the championship with Ricky Taylor and Felipe Albuquerque? We've seen in recent races that championship lead getting smaller and smaller and smaller. and now it's the smallest that it's been. So it's going to be really crazy, and the deficit is so small. Basically, whoever finishes in front of the other is going to win the championship. So basically, just setting up for a winner take all. Even if they don't win the race, we're gonna see which car is gonna finish ahead of the others. And to all of our viewers in the chat room out there, please let us know what you think. Who's gonna finish ahead and win the championship? Is it gonna be Action Express Racing or Wayne Tayor Racing? It should definitely be a great fight between the Acura and the Cadillac to see who's gonna hoist the trophy at the end of 10 hours of racing. And looking at the other pole setters in LMP2, the number 52 PR1 Mazda Motorsports Oracle 07 Gibson. Ben Keaton beat Stephen Thomas, LMP3. Number 2 United Autosports Ligier with Nicholas Curetin behind the wheel. GTLM, the number 24 Team RLL BMW M8 on pole. Jesse Crum with a good lap in the GT car's final race before switching over to the BMW M4 GT3 next year in GTD Pro. And we'll definitely miss all of those big BMW memes you see all over the internet. And GTD, number 1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini, who's fighting Fast Motorsports for the championship. Madison Snow, just like Felipe Nasr and Action Express, fired the first shot to their title rivals. Also, be sure to follow the results of the Michelin Endurance Cup as well. Watching 10 hours of racing, it's a championship within a championship. Now it's time for everyone's favorite game, pick a winner.
That's right, Kobe. So now it's time that we make our picks. Kobe, I'll start with you. At the end of 10 hours of racing, where we go from daylight into darkness, who wins overall in this year's Motul Petit Le Mans?
I think my pick is actually going to shock a lot of people. I know we've been talking about the championship battle between Action Express, Wayne Tayor Racing, Cadillac, and Acura, but I'm actually going to go with the Cinderella storybook ending. Think that number 55 Mazda DPI, Oliver Jarvis, Harry Tinknell, Jonathan Bomarito, they're going to get it done. They're going to get the crown jewel win as Mazda bows out of factory prototype racing. I think it's going to be a great emotional story. There's going to be a lot of tears. So I'm definitely going for the sentimental ending with Mazda Motorsports winning this year's Petit Le Mans.
That's a good, strong choice, and I think it'd be kind of cool too. But for me, I got to go with number 31, Action Express, Wayland Engineering Cadillac, Pippo Durrani, Felipe Nasr, and Mike Conway. We just said that they fired the first shot over Wayne Tayor Racing. I believe when it's all said and done, at the end of 10 hours, Action Express wins and also wins the DPI championship. If you're a sports car fan, you're definitely going to want it. You're going to definitely want to tune in and see this endurance event. It's known across the world. It's a race that everybody wants to participate in, and we always see drivers from other forms of motorsports come over. We have Scott Dixon, Jimmy Johnson, and Simon Pagenaud, and also we have Halo Castroneves off from IndyCar competing in the Motul Petit Le Mans. So settle in, get your favorite drinks, favorite food, and kick back and watch a 10-hour classic race that is the Motul Petit Le Mans.
Yes, and live coverage. Live television coverage of the 24th Motul Petit Le Mans begins at noon Eastern Time on NBC. We like to call that Big NBC. Green flag set to drop at 12:10, then ending at 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time in complete darkness. NBC coverage will end at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Then be sure to switch over to NBCSN for the remainder of the 10-hour endurance race. Also, don't miss our regular Grid Live pre-race coming up shortly. After we conclude here with Adam and the rest of the gang at noon Eastern, they'll preview Supercars in Sydney, Formula One in Brazil, and MotoGP in Valencia. It's definitely going to be an emotional weekend over there as we say goodbye to the doctor, Valentino Rossi. Please like and subscribe to Grit Network here on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We want to encourage you to visit our Patreon page and invest in Grit Network. Big shout out to Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin for supporting us. We greatly appreciate it. Be sure to check out Pawbless. Please consider spoiling your furry friend. They have dog delicious clothing and accessories for dogs of all sizes. 10% of your purchase will go towards helping homeless, sick, and rescue dogs. Visit public.com, the stock market social media home. Click the link in referral code below. They'll give you $5 to invest right away. Public.com will allow you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. We also want to take a moment and welcome our new sponsor, Buy Me a Coffee. You click on the link in the video description below, and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grit Network, and any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. For Adam Lemerise, I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Enjoy Petit Le Mans. We'll see you tomorrow on Grit Live Wrap-Up, 90 minutes after Formula One, to recap the 10-hour race.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.